Hello and welcome along to Sportsbet TV with this weekend's racing tips coming to you as ever from Paul Alster, and we're looking forward to the Irish Derby weekend at the Curragh, and it really is a very, very interesting race for this weekend's renewal. Well, if you're new to the service and people are joining us all the time, I'm delighted to say, I'm always looking for decent priced horses. It's not often I give one at a win bet. It's normally each way odds, although as it happens this week there is one that I will be recommending win only. Now, if you're new as well, then it's a good time to step up and just press that subscribe button, and then you'll be able to follow all my bulletins. All the tips are free, and it's for you to decide whether or not you choose to follow my advice or go in a completely different direction or follow your own gut feeling. Well, last week was all about Royal Ascot. We had a bit of a challenging first 3 days, but happily things started to pick up in the final 2 days. We had a number of decent priced place runners. Of course, Wonderful Tonight, who was recommended at 11-2. There would have been a rule 4 on that, I think, eventually, but she won so well on the final day. And we had a couple of others also have run very well. So although it wasn't the very best Royal Ascot we've had, you can't win them all, as we know. And we move on already with a very, very healthy profit over the course of the last season and the last year following my tips to the advised amounts. So I'm going to take you on to what we've got for this weekend. And there are 4 suggestions, 2 of them at the Curragh, 1 at Newcastle. Of course, it's Pitman's Derby weekend there. And another one at Chester, and that's where I'm going to start. On the Rudy at Chester, the 245. Now, this is a 5-furlong handicap, 8 runners declared, so that's good. We get 3 places for the each-way bet. And it's a really tight, typically tight sprint handicap at Chester. It'll be lickety-split around those very sharp bends. The horse is rated up to 95. There'll be a huge amount of early pace. And quite a lot of front runners, the likes of Charlie Fellows, Glamorous Anna, Bossy Pop and Cuban Breeze amongst them, all with chances. But last week, regular followers will know that I took Caroline Dale in the final race at Ascot, but because of the rapidly deteriorating ground, she was eventually taken out. Now, I'm hoping that the patience of her connections is going to be rewarded here. And that this filly, trained by David Loughnan, who's had a great season and, of course, had that 1-2 in the Sandringham handicap, I think it was, at Royal Ascot. Well, he trains Caroline Dale, and Cameron Noble, good value for the £3 claim still, will be on board. Now, this will be her belated seasonal reappearance, Caroline Dale. She was a very pacey and classy juvenile in 2020. She, of course, produced a shock performance when third at 100-1 in the Group 2 Queen Mary Stakes of 2020. Went on to win a Windsor 5-furlong good to firm novice stakes in July of last year. And then was an excellent third in the Group 3 Princess Margaret Stakes back at Ascot, a race that probably took her to the very limit and maybe beyond her stamina limit over 6 furlongs as she just tied up in the last 100 yards. She's all about speed, but she has tactical speed as well, which is important here. She ended last season finishing third in a listed race at Newbury on soft ground over 5 furlongs, a good effort on ground that really wouldn't have suited her. Now, she's been ready to run for a little while. They've been waiting for the right conditions, and I think they were very hopeful she was going to run a massive race at really good odds at Ascot last week, but as I say, it didn't come to be. Now, in the past, she has on occasions led, but she's also stalked the pace. And I think with so much pace in this particular race, and she's got a decent draw in stall 4, I think it could be set up for her to just sit 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then wait for the gap and hopefully burst through it inside the final furlong. So my recommendation is Caroline Dale. At the time of this recording, very early Friday lunchtime, only the 1 firm have gone up, and that's our old friends William Hill, who are giving us something of a guide, really, and offering her at 5-1. And each way, that's a perfectly respectable price. That may, of course, get bigger. And, of course, as I always advise, shop around, have a look at the different bookmakers, check a few of the odds comparison sites as well. That sometimes can be a real eye-opener, and also decide what sort of terms are most appealing to you Are you looking for more places or bigger odds? Or will you go with the opportunity, as I often try to do, to bet with a bookmaker that will give you the best odds guaranteed, so that if the SP is bigger than the price you take, you get paid out at the bigger odds. So remember to bear all those things in mind. And if you're fairly new to racing, believe me, it makes such a huge difference to the figures and your profit and loss at the end of a season, and indeed at the end of a day, and never mind a whole season. So Caroline Dale, 2:45 at Chester, my first recommendation for Saturday. And as she crosses the line, hopefully in front, and will be unsaddled in the winner's enclosure there in the centre of the course at Chester, they'll be arriving at the post at Newcastle, up there in the northeast at Gosford Park for the 2:55. And this is my second race for you, the Northumberland Vase. It is the consolation race for the Northumberland Plate that comes just a short while later on for those horses that didn't make the cut in the 2-mile handicap. So there are 20 runners in this 2-mile handicap, and it's a cracking consolation race. I mean, you know, the big one is very good. And just, by the way, I just couldn't come to a decision on that. I did look at a few, very nearly tipped Australis, but in the end, I just couldn't fancy one strongly enough. But there was one in this 2:55, the consolation race, that for me is of more interest. Now, loads of horses with chances, loads of horses coming into the race at Newcastle, which is on the artificial surface, of course, coming here with really good form and a sequence of good performances, including the likely favourite East Asia, who's on a 4-time, including 2 recent wins at Goodwood, very progressive. Question with this one I have is that it's 0 from 12 on the all-weather, although many of those were, in fact, I think all of them were in the United Arab Emirates at Jebel Ali and at Meydan and such. And the horse has definitely turned over a new leaf since joining its new connections in Britain. So East Asia will be favourite going up the weights. Indigo Times has won 4 of its 5 races this season. This is a definite all-weather horse. It's won at Kempton, Chelmsford, and even on the fibre sand at Southwell. Willie Haggis has a horse called A Star Above. Quite interesting. It's a new trip. And Roger Varian has a horse called Zeben, and this one has a visor on for the first time. Looks progressive. Interesting to see how that one as well handles the all-weather. And then there's Raymond, who's been going very well in recent weeks, 3 from 5 in 2021, including 2 wins on the all-weather, and he won on his first attempt, stepping up to 2 miles last time out. So Raymond is a potential dark horse, I'd say, in this particular race. There are many with chances. Most firms, I'm sure, will bet 5 places, and I'm sure there'll be a few that bet 6. So we'll be looking for those that are offering 6. But eventually I've come down on the side of Dreamweaver, who is trained by Ed Walker and the mount of Edward Greatrex. Now, this is another horse who's stepping up in trip, and I'll come to that in a moment. But he won in 2019 at Newcastle. So he's won at the track, but it was over 1.5 miles, and that was about 21 months ago. Then last season, in 2020, he won at Haydock on good to firm ground of 79, amongst a number of good runs. He also placed off 86 over 1.5 miles in good company. And then this season, he made a reappearance at Salisbury in April, where he was just touched off by a horse called Brasker. Now, Brasker reopposes here, and our selection Dreamweaver is £1 better off with that horse. And then last time out, just stepping up a bit in trip, Dreamweaver over 1 mile, 5.5 furlongs, nearly 1.75 miles. Surprisingly, he couldn't go the pace, although to be fair, it was at Chester where there's just no chance to get a breather. And he was staying on at the end of the race. And I saw that and thought, this horse wants 2 miles. Now, he's going to have a much longer straight and less bends to negotiate at Newcastle, the track where, as I say, he has won before. And I think this horse is going to stay, and I'm hopeful of him running a really big race. So at the odds on offer at the time of this recording, 22 to 1 each way with Bet Victor and with William Hill. That's at the moment for 5 places, but those terms could improve as they start to look for your business on the morning of the actual race. So Dreamweaver, my selection, 22 to 1, may well go bigger, of course. So do look out to see which way the market's going. The 2:55 at Newcastle. And then I'm coming on to the big race of the weekend. And this is a cracking race. It's such a good race, actually, that very often in the last few years, I've travelled over to Ireland for the Irish Derby. The hospitality there is second to none. And while it has to be said, they haven't always been won in recent years by an outstanding horse. There have been some really high-class winners, as we very well know. And this year's renewal, I think, is fascinating. It's over 1.5 miles, of course. It's Group 1. The going is forecast good, even good to firm in a few places. Aidan O'Brien, of course, dominates the Irish Classics. He's won 6 of the last 10 Irish derbies, and Lord knows how many before the last decade. Indeed, he's won the last 2 renewals with the likes of Sovereign, who you might remember ran away with it, and Santiago last time. Now, he's running 5 here. Some have better chances than others, quite clearly, but I think there's no doubt that his High Definition is the pick of the quintet. And it was, of course, a winner of the Group 2 Beresford Stakes as a 2-year-old, which is often a race won by Derby candidates. He made his reappearance this season, did High Definition, in the Dante Stakes, and he ran like a horse who needed it. Indeed, Aidan O'Brien made it very clear before the race he thought the horse would come on for the outing. He finished third to Hurricane Lane of Godolphin, who is going to reoppose him at the Curragh on Saturday. Now, this horse stayed on well, did High Definition. I'm sure he's going to be spot on this time. I think he'll be quite hard to beat, but I don't think he's an outstanding candidate. He's taking on Hurricane Lane again, who since has finished third in the Derby, of course, to Adea, although he was beaten nearly 8 lengths. I think he'll run another honest race, but it wouldn't surprise me if Hurricane Lane finds 1 or 2 too good. Now, our old friend Max Sweeney is back for more. He, of course, a very smart 2-year-old, a Group 1 winner of the Verton Futurity at Doncaster. He went on to win the Irish 1,000 guineas last month, of course, providing the final leg of our treble on what was a memorable day of odds in excess of 1,000 to 1 for the treble for those that followed my suggestions. And of course, he himself went on to run at Epsom in the Derby. And I know people said he handled the track, he just didn't stay, but I'm not convinced. First of all, I don't think Jim Bolger will be running over the stiff 1.5 miles as well at the Curragh if he didn't think it would stay. I just thought he got a little bit unbalanced about 3 furlongs from out, although he did come there looking dangerous 2 out. But again, he seemed to just roll closer down towards the rail. And I just overlook his run in the Derby. But there is that slight question mark about whether he's as good over 1.5 miles. It doesn't mean he doesn't stay, but maybe he stays at a slightly lower level. But you've got to respect him, and he's so tough. And he's won, of course, a classic already at this track. Then you've got Mojo Star, who's the curiosity of the race. Of course, he was second in the Derby, still a maiden at 50 to 1. It was a huge effort, beaten 4.5 lengths by Adea. But I'm just not convinced. I don't know why, because he ran a perfectly solid race, but I'm sidestepping a Mojo Star. Now, Aidan O'Brien's other horses include such as Wordsworth, who will stay. He was second over 1 3/4 miles in the Group 2 Queen's Vase at Royal Ascot last week. He also finished, we've got Van Gogh, who of course was third in the Irish 2,000 guineas, and then went on to have a bit of a rough run around in the French Derby, but I'm not convinced Van Gogh is quite good enough. Johnny Murtaugh's got an interesting runner called Earlswood, who I tipped earlier in the season when he ran well at Chester. He's gone on to win in group companies since, but I think this quicker ground will not really suit him. And so that brings me to my choice. And after much deliberation, I come down on the side of Lone Eagle. And Lone Eagle is trained by Martin Mead, and he's booked Frankie Dettori. Now, Frankie, of course, won this race way back in 1994 with a fabulous filly, Balanchine. 27 years ago, it's hard to believe. I can still remember Balanchine bounding away. And this Lone Eagle is a horse bred to be a real high-class performer. He's by Galileo. The dam is by Duke of Marmalade, so loads of stamina there. She won at 1.5 miles, and he actually cost his connections 500,000 guineas. So this is a horse bred to be very useful indeed. And as a 2-year-old, he won 3 times. He won over 1 mile at Goodwood. He won a Doncaster nursery at the St. Ledger meeting, always a very competitive nursery. And then he won at HQ, taking the Zetland Stakes, which is a a race that often points towards potential Derby or even St Ledger horses for the following season. Now, this year, he was made favourite on his reappearance to win the Group 3 Classic Trial at Sandown, and he came there with every chance of furlong out, but he just didn't quite get home, appearing to blow up on his first run of the season. He was beaten 4.5 lengths. The race was won by Alenquer, and Alenquer, of course, came out last week and won the King Edward VII Stakes at Royal Ascot. The second horse at Sandown was Adair. He came out and ran away with the Derby. And the third horse was Yabir. And that's significant because next time out, Lone Eagle met Yabir again. Lone Eagle, this time being fully fit, and he wiped the floor with him, beaten by 4 lengths in the Cocked Hat Stakes at Goodwood over very nearly 1.5 miles, showing that he's progressed a lot from that first to his second run. And on a line through Yabir and Adair and such, he has the beating of the likes of Hurricane Lane, as I see it, and Mojo Star. So I think that Lone Eagle is going to run a great race. I think he'll be fairly prominent. Wouldn't surprise me if some of the O'Brien battalion tried to, fire him up a bit, but hopefully Frankie will be wise to it. And I think at the odds on offer of 8-1 each way, that's at the moment with 888 Sport and for William Hill, I think he's going to run a massive race, Lone Eagle, for Martin Mead, who's handled some very decent horses over the years. This one potentially could be the best of the lot. So I'm going for a British win in the Irish Derby, something of a rarity. And Lone Eagle is the choice for the 3:45 race at the Curragh. And then I take you to my final selection, which is also at the Curragh at 4:50. It's a 1 mile listed contest, 11 runners. It's for 3-year-olds and upwards. Excuse me. There are some very interesting horses, and I very regularly broadcast on Irish racing, and I watch these horses rather closely. And we've got a horse called State of Rest for Joseph O'Brien, who was third in the Champagne Stakes, Group 2 last season, and then fifth to Max Sweeney on heavy ground. He's a very interesting horse on his reappearance. Now, Jessie Harrington has won this race in 2 of the last 3 years. She's got a horse who's in absolutely tip-top form. He's won his last 2. He's called Harpocrates, and he's won on the all-weather at Dundalk, but carried on his improvement at Tipperary in a decent race last time, so I wouldn't rule out a big show from him. Now, another very good Irish lady trainer is Sheila Lavery, and she's got the filly here, Belle Image, who was a superb 4th in the Irish 1,000 guineas at odds of 125-1. And Sheila has also handled some very good horses, particular fillies in recent years. The name has just escaped me. That very good filly she had a couple of years ago that was ill-fated and would probably have been a real star. But her best form, Belle Image, has been on very testing ground, and I'm not sure she'll be quite quick enough against this lot. And then you've got John Joe Murphy's Charterhouse and Johnny Murtagh's 4 Home 2, who are both potentially dangerous and could improve. But my choice here is the 4-year-old, so carrying more weight, of course, than the 3-year-olds this time of year. And that is Sinnerwan. Mick Halford trains this one for the Aga Khan. And Ronan Whelan, very capable jockey, is on board. Now, this is one of the best looking horses I've seen for a while. He's by Kingman. He's an absolute stunner. And he's got a bit of an engine in him, because he's rated 114. He won a Group 3 rather, at Leopardstown over 1 mile last July. And that was on his second start of the season. The previous year, he won on his second start as a 2-year-old as well. And then towards the end of last season, he was beaten that much, about a short head by Safe Voyage in a Group 2 at Leopardstown at the big champions meeting there in September. Now, he's already had a run this season, has Sinnerwan. He travelled really well in the Glencairn Stakes at Leopardstown, came there looking a huge danger of furlong out, and a bit like Lone Eagle at Sandown. He just didn't see his race out first time out. But we know that's been a pattern with Sinnerwan because, as I mentioned a few moments ago, he ran a fair race on debut as a 2-year-old, then won second time out. He ran a fair race on debut as a 3-year-old and then won second time out. And this year, he ran a very fair race, first time out, to be third in a pretty hot race. And I think he's going to do it again and win second time out. Now, Because this isn't the feature race over in Ireland, the bookmaker's very slow pricing up. I have no odds to guide me here, but I'm suggesting that if he's there at around 7-2 or something like that, it would be lovely if he's bigger. I think it's worth a bet on Seeyouatmidnight. He's my Seeyouatmidnight rather. He's my best bet of the day, and I'm recommending him win. So instead of the notional £10 each way on the previous three suggestions, it'll be a £20 win for Seeyouatmidnight for me in the 450 race at Leopardstown for Mick Halford and for Ronan Whelan. So there you go, 4 of them. You can punt them all. You can just take one or none, or choose a few of them and put them in multiples, round robins for 3 runners, lucky 15 or a Yankee for 4. But let's hope they run well. And I'm pretty optimistic we're going to see some good performances from these horses this weekend. And I hope if you go with them or not, whatever you bet, I wish you the very best of luck. So until next time, it's bye-bye from me, and bye-bye, of course, from all the team at Sportsbet TV. See you soon.